More Than Human Urban Design is a research project here at the Melbourne School of Design. It investigates how we as architects and designers could develop alternative strategies and new ideas to transform urban design into something which considers more than humans, which basically addresses the challenges we're facing through climate catastrophe and endangered species. This project supports native bees, but also any other kind of insects by constructing a habitat to enforce a green corridor and an insect corridor across the city of Melbourne.
In response to the More Than Human design brief, we looked at how we could bring some data in to drive the design. The first thing we did was we 3D scanned the site using LiDAR technology, and we also put some sensors out onto site to capture environmental data over a couple of days as well. Together, this gave us a spatial and kind of data-driven understanding of the site. And from there, we were able to cross-reference this data with literature, and we used that to drive certain design parameters, such as shading and protection from nighttime light and sound pollution, proximity to food and other natural resources, and so on and so forth. Finally, we generated some visualizations that kind of approximate how an animal might behave or see the world. We did this as a way to see if we can inform design through empathy.
We entirely used branches that were found, particularly branches that were found on campus actually here at the university. And so they were basically waste products that would be otherwise discarded or turned into mulch. And so we began with the process of 3D scanning, where we used photogrammetry, took a series of photographs of these logs, which was used to then form a 3D model, and also a point cloud of those logs, and that could then be used for visual purposes, for representation of the logs, but also for a 3D model. And then those 3D models were then further operated on in the digital environment to assemble them into a particular form, and also to create joints and connections between those logs so that they could be assembled into a larger whole.
The branches were processed at the MSD robotics lab, where we were fabricating different types of joineries to connect these different offcuts into a whole structure. The joineries were inspired by traditional Japanese joinery and were converted into something we can fabricate using the robots. It was primarily using subtractive methods of machining out existing material to fabricate these joints, and the overall assembly were conducted using dry assembly, where joints were connected together by friction without using any adhesive glues. Some surface detailings were done to create habitats for native bees, and these were done using a similar setup on the at the robotics lab. The habitat is being installed at Fisherman's Bend, where a lot of urban development is happening to activate the site. And it's great to see local materials being used to activate a local site right here in Melbourne.
I'm really excited that this beautiful More Than Human habitat is already here in Fisherman's Bend. The students collected data here on this very site. The data was analysed and it informed part of the process to design the habitat for this site. And then you can see this beautiful object has been made in the studio, and now it's here.
I'm Marcus, I'm CEO of FB Ideas. We're really excited to be supporting this project. FB Ideas has been set up with support of the Victorian Government to support innovation, diversity, experimentation and activation here in Fisherman's Bend.
The project is funded by the Fisherman's Bend Ideas Agency and Creative Future Funds here at the Faculty of Architecture, Building and Planning.